This recording is to explain how Tesla managed to create the AC, how it's done today, and how it was done over 100 years ago. In the last couple of years, non-stopping, twofold years of research, I kind of discovered pretty much how he does it. Because you have to be able to answer the question, what is the element? And when you have the name of the element, how did they work? When you accomplish this task, which took me a long time to find out, then our science, willingly or unwillingly, will be lying to us. They begin giving us facts. We say the facts, but they have no way to prove anything on what they're talking about. Like electrons, they don't have a clue, really, beside the iron electrons, how the rest of the group of electrons function. And Tesla discovered that it was more than one type of electrons. It was multiple type of electrons. And by manipulating those reaction of the other type of electrons when they're presented with a simple ion electrons, then we can create a reaction, and some of the reaction is actually energy. So at that point in time, then if you know how to capture that energy and turning into usable energy, that would be fantastic, because we have a reaction between two natural elements. And it's, Tesla find out, there's a lot of power into that. So that's what I became realizing, and walking back and his footstep backward, to find out the words, what he means, some of the words, because everything we read is all translation. It's not the actual writing of Tesla. Tesla never wrote probably anything in English. It was all in his own language, and it probably got translated a dozen times. So instead, after I spin my wheels, trying to do research on somebody else's translation, who's been translated a dozen times, I'm just going to go and find out what Tesla had to work with in those years, and how Tesla and the language they were using, and how they came out with that words and all that stuff. Because all the word they used in those days, they didn't really invent it. They just used a word. It was already usable there in another function, and they just took that words and said, we're going to apply that to that function. So that's why it was a lot of word distortion. And I kind of went through all that and remove all the garbage out of it, and keep the common sense one. And it got me to understand, how he was doing things, how he was seeing things, because the instrument he had in 1876 and 1878 didn't achieve too much. I didn't see anybody walking with a smartphone in those days. I mean, they didn't have. I think the only thing they had was pocket, some good and bad pocket watch, time watch. They had clocks, and they had the machometer, I think it's called it, that unit to put over the piano to keep you on time with your ribbon. So I mean, beside that, and scale, right? And we're talking about the old system scale, moving weight, right, back and forth. That was the only accuracy they have in those days. They didn't have no amp meter and stuff like this. That was all happened after. So I mean, what did they have, right? When he called currents, right? The only thing he had to reflect on that It was sitting aside a river and watching the water go by him. And that was a current. That was a direction, a motion. Current means motion. It means it's moving. That's why we don't have current in a battery, right? We only have potential, because the battery doesn't carry a current. It's at the resistance. And so, I mean, when Tesla came up with the word current, that would be a direction, a motion, a movement. So I applied that to the calculation, and suddenly, hey, okay, now we're having a direction. We have motion. So let's put that to work. And then after that, he was always talking about in his lab potential. Well, everybody you call potential in the world of science, they will tell you potential is amp. It's not. Amp is not even made yet, so it cannot be amp. Potential is the amount of resonance between the signal. The signal carry a certain amount of resonance. Higher your resonance, that means each between signal, you will have a massive amount of resonance. Now, higher and stronger the resonance is between the signal, higher your potential is, because you need resonance to make a hertz, because a hertz is so many being per second. I believe it's 7,200 being a second will give you 1 hertz. Now a hertz is before the volts. So if you have, for example, if I'm right, I mean it could be 3,600, but I figure it's about 7,200. Double that, because I'm using 4 magnets instead of 2. So I know the calculation is made at 2 magnets slapping 4 times as they go, so they slap quite a bit. So that's what I came up with my number, 7,200 Bing, because every time the magnet turn around, she's slapping the iron, and that create a Bing, and and that way you have 7,200 Bing, and that will equal into the calculation of 1 hertz. And soon you achieve 1 hertz in the wire, you will achieve 1 volt also. Now resonance per hertz, but the hertz is the calculation and how many being I got in the resonance. So you have to understand. Then the hertz from the wave can be also calculated on the same instrument. You just have to be the way you do it. You do it a different way. So when you figure that one out, then you can calculate your hertz on your and the bings between the to the hertz, and then the hertz to the volt, and then the volt, the high voltage, which would be. That's what Tesla was talking. The high voltage, high potential generator. Well, his generator, literally, the way he was doing it, he was creating communication wave, wireless communication wave. And that's what it takes from the wireless communication wave. Instead putting an antenna in the end of that coil to transmit, he hooked it up to a solid wire. So, I mean, when you have high potential, that means a lot of resonance, a lot of hertz, a lot of volts. Guys, this is high voltage, high potential. Now, when you want to get something to work with, then that transmission and high voltage, high potential, now because of the equipment, all calculate on a 360, right, on 360 degrees. So we have to break that cycle, chop that high voltage up to 60 cycle, 60 times a second. So and you have to have an equal parts of low to an equal parts of high. So what I do, you take all the generator, put it through spark gaps. Oh, and there's another thing, spark gaps. You have to bear with me. I'm talking to myself here. So the spark gaps, I find out when you put a spark gaps, when you go above 1,000 volts, and you can actually make the volt jump, a spark gaps. From the first jump, you will see your hertz from your generator will shoot up into the kilohertz immediately, from 300-400 hertz to kilohertz, just by jumping to a spark gaps and how far the spark gap is. And they have a sweet spot, right? It can be too far or too close, right? But it's got a sweet spot there to give you the most multiplication. And like, it's like it amplified. It amplified and magnified. That's what Tesla was talking. Magnification and amplification, right? They don't put a number to that, because that's the word, used almost in the I would say the Bronze Age, because that, the pastor, that's what he was using, Bronze Age mathematics. I had to go through hell to find out exactly what this guy was seeing and what this guy was using. And new mathematics cannot even get close to what he was doing. He was using Bronze Age mathematics. I became a little bit picking up how he calculate that. Like when I told you it takes 7,200 Bing to create 1 hertz. 1 hertz create 1 volt, and then it goes up from there on high frequency. Higher, when you enter the gigahertz, well, you enter the millions of volts, right? So that's how he was doing his transmission of powers, right? Because that is no resistance. That volt have absolutely no resistance. It goes through everything because it's in a resonance form. And he can go through, that's why he goes through the earth, goes through everything. And the reason I find out about this power, this resonance, is with all the instruments I've been testing it, I'm picking up an echo. Well, when I was a kid, I used to go between two mountains, and nighttime when it was nice and the sun's going down and everything is calmed down, and I used to play with the echo, right? But it's just like when you scream an echo, you scream a wave with some resonance. The resonance goes right through the rock on the other side. But the wave bounces back to you. It's separate at that point in time. That's how resonance works between traveling with wave or traveling with no wave. If you should travel with no wave, the speed of resonance, it's instant. If you're traveling with wave, well, the wave, each wave will give you a certain speed, so you won't be even close to the speed of resonance. The speed of resonance is, I would say, is the speed of light, maybe even faster. So that's by understanding how Tesla was using all that stuff. He was using micrometer, and the timing, and he was hitting a ring of iron and looking at how many a millisecond the ring resonate to it drops down to, you start hearing the drop of the density of the ring, and then timing it, and then calculate from that, and take a millisecond and split that millisecond by the 100 again. So he was capable of doing that because he was just moving volumes. Again, bronze calculation, when numerals were not invented, they were moving volume. You want that? Give me so much of that, I'll give you so much of this. They were moving volume. That was the way of commerce. So that's why all the calculation and all the scientists and all the electronic engineers and electrical engineers, they cannot duplicate what Tesla was doing because they're using mathematics. Mathematics is great if you want to build a plane, because mathematics reflects equality. It's algebra. It reflects equality. How can you make something more out of a certain volume and make more with that volume than you have now? It's impossible. And that's what the Newton laws and Faraday's laws and Lee's laws, they all apply. Right? But he was not working with those laws. Those laws was the wrong calculation to be able to tap into an energy, and it's not free. You have to give him some energy, but what it does, it gave you back a million times back. The Tesla's calculation and an explanation in court, that was a court transcript that I read. It was, if you would take, in those days, it was Westinghouse steam turbine. He said, if you would take a 500 horse turbine and convert that 500 horse to the maximum resonance the 500 horse is capable of doing, this means spinning a very high frequency generator, by the time you convert the high voltage coming out of the generator and you reconvert it back, he said in the end of the line you will be able to turn 1.5 million horsepower of electric motor. So that's mean for 500 horse of input you had 1.5 million output. So that's a lot of step up. But that's how energy works. That's why the element and the electrons, if you play with it properly, they give you a massive amount of energy because they're tapping into space and times. And space and times, when you're tapping into that, people call it the heater, people call it the vacuum, it's space and times. That means an area where that's all it is literally energy, and resonance is very much the base of it. So I mean, when you go in there and you already charge with a certain amount of charge, and the electron engine is jumping between the two pieces of the spark gap, he's got to go through time and space. He's already energized. So what happened is, it's just like when you're into when you grind plastic, right, with a grinder. You grind plastic with a grinder, right? Well, everything stick to you. Nothing else but what you've been touching, because it's static electricity, right? So that's what that electron does. When she's already charged, she's picking up a whole whack of that energy from time and space, which is pure energy, pure resonance. And then when she arrives at the other side now, she's on steroid. And then you do that a second time, and it will increase a second time equally. So by the time it went through the second spark gap, well, my God, I mean, you have a massive amount of energy which you gather, and it didn't cost you nothing besides spinning the unit. And spinning the unit, because you're using high volt, and you disconnect your line with spark gap between the generator and the coil, suddenly you have no connection. So therefore I cannot put the brakes on the coil to slow down the magnet. So you're just having a generator which is totally 100% energy efficient. Now, 100% energy efficient. Just think about that. This means it doesn't require extra energy, and you make this massive amount of energy for what you have to spin the spool. So, that's what high voltage does to you. I mean, same thing with the big dam. They're all high voltage. That's why the turbine can turn it. If you would put that to low voltage, it would stall those turbines. It was not a turbine would be turning. It would just be like the brake to put on. It's called that magnetic brakes. They just they stop turning everything. But anyway, this is kind of I'm trying to explain. The resonance is what we're getting in the communication form into the power line, and then it goes to your transformer. Now, when you send transmission communication to a power line through a solid line, is one thing is very, Very, very interesting. You cannot slow down the flow. The flow have to come up and return back. Or you have to have a massive discharge in the other end, so you would lose everything. So what you do, you bring it back. It's just like a line, a water line with a flow in it, which be your current, the direction, right? And it goes to the end and come back to a special transformer, right? Which keep enough pressure in the main line, on the top line, to keep but you have to have a bypass so the line doesn't heat up, because the resonance will only increase, it doesn't go down. So, in other words, everything goes pretty much back into the factory and the recycling, because then the generator slows down, back off automatically from generating more resonance when the resonance level is perfect. And then when you connect that line to your pole transformer, before it's energized, have to be connected to the neutral line below. So when they energize the pole transformer, they'll know it was not going to blow. The pole transformer was not going to pressurize and blow up. Well, I've been talking to many linemen and high voltage electricians who they work on pole transformer and all that stuff, and they install, large service and industrial service. They say the same thing. That thing have to be connected. Well, of course. If it doesn't, it blow up, which I've been told many times. So a transformer is just almost like a open and closed gate, right? When you're demanding power from one of the X1 or X2, that gate picks up, because resonance is lazy. It doesn't like going through stuff, more than you need to get out of there. It will take always the easiest route, because it's the least resistance for them, and that way they can go, they can maintain pretty much their speed. So at that point in time, that thing goes through. Let's say I'm turning something that require 10 amp for me to run on AC. Well, I'm removing resistance on that plate. So suddenly it comes through it. So the resonance comes through it as a sine wave going through the plate, because they take all those being and they create a sine wave, because they got dumped in a big, large, round, a long plate was being wrapped in a circle. So now we have a way that create that sine wave, the AC wave that everybody knows about it. It create that. So now we know where the sine wave it comes from, your transformer. The transformer create that. The transformer create watts. Kilowatts. That's why I got a 10 kilowatts here. That's meaning you make 10,000 watts, or the capability of the transformer to send me 10,000 watts constantly. So before it's not amp, it's potential from the top line with a 60 slash a second into it, who comes to the top line, hit my transformer, where the 60 slash goes through, so the 60 slash will convert right through the plates and come out the other side just perfectly. And then I'll have a signal wave now, an AC wave instead, just communication scrambles with high potential. And then guess what? You bring that to your house, and you pretty much runs everything. We've been doing it for over 150 years. And is that, it's simple enough when you know what to look for. And the only way I totally changed my research and went straight to resonance is because our equipment is designed to lie to us. It's not, we find out through a year and a half of testing radiation, I find out magnetic radiation do not exist. Magnetic radiation does not exist unless it's a particle who's activated or is contaminated with high radiation, who transmit, they transmit gamma ray, X-ray, and UV ray on a very high heat, and that's what you get radiation burn. But you have to have a particle. Okay, it can't happen on nothing. And you can't turn it off, that I know so far, which we're working on that. I'm working on that. But is another, it doesn't exist. It's not there. I found out the equipment, from a friend of mine came up and he started, this guy can't sit still for 2 seconds. And my instrument was still on my bench, and then he was tapping and moving tools around, and then he saw the instrument, the needle moving, and then soon he told me that, and he started tapping beside. He said, "Look," he said, "I'm tapping." He said, "The needle moves." I said, "What are you talking about?" Then I get up. And that's my guy who's doing all my video stuff. His name is Josh. I mean, the guy is like 6'7", 6'10". I mean, he's a giant, and he just like touching stuff. and he find out, then I get up. I said, "Well, come on, show me that." He tapped the counter, my bench, and there you go, my meter's moving. So that's where everything changed. I mean, it referred to what I was doing. I was in the right direction, but that gave me a quantum leap of understanding when I start testing the instrument. Why you tell me this when it's not that? Why I'm getting a reaction? I got different type of instrument, and the clamp meter, the way clamp meter, a voltmeter and a clamp meter all work what they're going after. Did anybody ever, electronic gazoo over there, ever ask you that question? The instrument you're using, what they're going after? What are they going? What are they sensing? Right? Because I know the magnetism of a magnet is not live. It's just a big brush. And that's why when you're brushing against another material with that brush, it resonates. That's all it does. It resonates. And of course, iron, since the magnet is an iron base, and you're using the iron electron, as I repeat, iron electrons, positive and negative. When you create a magnet, you're just splitting the electrons and repositioning the electrons in a format, so they became positive and negative. And that's why that magnet will still stick to a piece of steel or anything to do with iron. So you literally, Tesla, I don't know if he had the time to do that, but since we find out, it was the easiest one to find out, it was the electron, the iron electron, how complicated it would be to separate the electrons of aluminum, of coppers, of brass, of all the other material, of pure stainless steel, and separate those electrons of gold, silver, you name it. I mean, everything a tree, the type of tree, they have their own electrons. I mean, we have electrons in our bodies. I mean, we load it with those because, electrons have a very, very, very distinct job here, is to maintain our greater gravity so we can actually walk, not float. But the whole system, it was like a panic. Everybody was panicking because I was discovering stuff I could not quite explain at that time because it was beyond why I always work all the time. And I know from a long time, since I'm a kid, the thing they said doesn't make any sense. I quit school before I was finished in my first quarter in grade 5 because they brought the new advanced math, and I find some major error in it, and I challenged it and won. So I'm just trying to wrap my head around that, and of course all the book they have on Tesla and stuff like this, it's just about garbage. It's been translated so many times in so many different, Tesla never built an electric car. He didn't need to, because he was able to tap into a different science, which was plasma, and you could tap that really easily with water or stainless steel. I don't know if you guys ever saw on YouTube the J cell, not the J cell, but the Joe cell. Sorry, the Joe cell in the guy in Australia. We can rent a car with a cell, and he plugged that to his 12-volt battery in his car, and that thing started bubbling, and he can start his car. Everybody think, he's making, a nitrogen gas and running his car nitrogen gas, but it's not. I mean, first thing, nitrogen gas is a little bit harder to separate than what it is now. But anyway, his gas line is bringing to the carburetor from the top of the carburetor. His gas is still a slug inside there. It's plugged. He plugged it up with the wrong piece of steel there, and he pushing that hose over the carburetor. The carburetor rod hold the air cleaner. That's always all the carburetor hose. That was a center rod, right? So you shove that over that. What happened is a DC battery, have no signal wave. For one reason, we can't read it because it's got resonance. DC is resonance, and the reason DC is resonance is very simple to prove. Take two copper wire, make it straight, and take a glass of water, and then tied up a 1.5 volt battery to a DC, and put it in the water, an inch apart, and you will see one line was going to start making bubble immediately, and the other line was going to start stripping itself down, the molecules breaking down. So only resonance can achieve that, my friend. Not conduction, not watts, heat. You can't do that. There's not enough power in that battery to create any heat. But there's enough resonance in that battery, and with a 1.5 volt to bring the resonance out there. So it vibrates those rods at an extreme higher resonance, and that's what it separates the gas from the water molecule. So that's how that happened. And then that gas comes up. What it does is it stays in the form of resonance. As long as it stays in gas, it is in the form of resonance, because that's how liquid turns to gas, with resonance. So as soon as you get liquid stay into a gas form, into the line, it resonates that plug like a vibrator. And then he pushes that, and he's pushing that right against the rod on the middle of the carburetor. And then he's just crank the car over. And as soon as you start cranking the car over, what happens is you create a vacuum right underneath that needle. That bolt there you put the hose on, it's got a focus point in the end. And that focus point, with a vacuum and high resonance, guess what happened? A blue-white plasma appears, which is not a corrosive plasma. Now, you have to be very careful. You have non-corrosive and corrosive plasma. And if you had corrosive plasma, it's mortared with a season probably in less than an hour. But a non-corrosive, since it's using water for the resonance, so you're probably picking up resonance from the element they're working, so it makes it non-corrosive. So, and that's how he was running his car, and his car was an Aero, one of the most expensive automobiles in the world. And that's when he was working in Niagara Falls. He was building Niagara Falls. Now, some people out there said he had an antenna and a black box and stuff. He was transmitting energy through an antenna through the air, and his car was running electric. They were full of it. It was not. He knew how to separate the element. He became an expert. And that's why the United States government grabbed him. Because he could manipulate. He knew he was more than a few electrons to hold this whole world all together. It was many electrons. You can make many types of energy. Yeah, you can make energy straight out of copper. You can make energy straight out of aluminum. You can make energy straight out of a piece of wood, right? If you know how to manipulate the element. That means separating. The beginning is you have to split something, and you have to separate the positive and the negative, because we're all on the positive and negative. Everything is made of positive and negative. Anything that exists in this planet, our planet is positive and negative. We can call it North Pole, whatever, right? But it's a force who actually split itself. It became two forces attracting each other. So when Tesla says, with resonance, you can actually crack the earth. I did it many times with resonant magnet. I can put my wire on each side of the magnet, and when I'm running the pump, just the pump itself, and the pump's only putting 300 hertz, but the magnet have its own resonance. So when I put a 300 hertz on each side on a node of the pole, in 3 or 4 seconds, that magnet just cracked right in half. I just split the earth. So everybody who want to try that, is very simple. 280 to 300 hertz, sine wave hertz. Stick the little clamp on each side of the magnet when they stick, because they're going to center themselves right in the middle of the strongest part of the pole, and then turn the pump on. And I guarantee it. 5-10 seconds, I go pop. I did so many magnets, now I had to go and buy some more. But that's how you crack. An object is already resonating. So the planet is already resonating. So creating earthquake and stuff like this with resonance, like everybody argue with ARP, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I have the knowledge to do that with what I got in my garage. I know, actually. I mean, it's very simple. The ARP, how the ARP work is totally with resonance, and if people would look at it, the ARP, the antenna are pointing down, not up. Okay. So I mean, they can control, because it's on I call it a checkerboard. So you can actually control the direction. You can go as deep as you want, and then you can turn pretty much into a 90 degrees. So it's very interesting the way they put that out there in Alaska. I mean, resonance is everything. It's what keeps us alive. It's what it gave us life, and it's what takes us life. Like the military, they've been using resonance. The crowd control, they're using resonance. It's all about resonance. When you feel like your skin burn because they're heating up the water molecule in your skin. That's deep as it really go, but it heats it up in a fraction of a degrees, and you feel like you're burning. You can't take it, or they put a sine wave into it, and they make it so the inside of your head want it to explode. That's all about resonance. You can't do it without it. Resonance, is what makes this world. And that's why Tesla says each planet sing a different tune. Well, he's right, because each planet have a different size and density. So some will have a denser size, much denser than the Earth. It will resonate in a higher frequency. Our planet have a lot of fluid on the top, so the high resonance from the core really get distorted in the soft material coming out of the planet. And that's why we see when we see some release of resonance, which are a little bit higher level than normal, I believe that's what makes the boreal light, because now we're having a high resonance coming out of the earth, bouncing back with resonance coming out from the atmosphere, and they're in a totally different frequency, but when they cross each other, they have to readjust each other, and then what happens is they create plasma. Now the plasma color it's just the different color orgasm that time had. When I was a kid, boreal light, it was white, blue, and green. There was no other color. Now we have purple, orange, mauve. Well, this is the pollution. That's the gas in the air. So plasma will be affected by gas for creating color. We all know that. Beside that, I could bore you, with everything else. Same thing with the electric motor. You can make drum motor. Your drum motor is the most efficient motor for creating horsepower. Your generator, you have to turn the inside because energy is affected by G-force, especially ion electron if you're going to use them. And pretty much every electron, any material has got weights. Electron will have weights. So you want to spin it from the inside so the energy displacement automatically increase and create more energy into your coil, more resonance into your coil. And that's pretty much it. Plasma, you can run all kinds of stuff with plasma. You can run a turbine with plasma because a turbine is just a control furnace anyway. And, you can, with resonance, you can make actually the actual gas engine and diesel engine be so efficient by resonating and breaking down the carbon molecule to a such a small shape, so you would have 100% burn at the explosion. So what comes out of the gas at the tailpipe is actually have no carbon in it, 0 carbon. The only reason we have carbon pollution in vehicle is because we can't, they don't break down the molecule of the carbon small enough, because you guys would be very efficient and they would not sell you as much. And that's pretty much the only reason. It's always the big dollar parts, right? Let's kill the planet to make a couple of dollars, because we'll have a couple of dollars, but the planet is gone. So that's the way the greed think. They don't give a shit. Right, the greed, they don't give a shit. And when I drive in the freeway and I see people, throwing stuff out of their car, garbage out of their car, I like to have a button, and just make this whole car just disappear. Like, disintegrated, just like the movies. That would be nice, because those people have no respect for nothing. They don't have no respect for me or the planet. So somebody like this, it have to be destroyed. Because if you don't do it, and you think you're going to clean the place, well, you just are, you're crying the wolf all the time. You're crying, but you never do a goddamn thing to fix the problem. Those people have to be removed. So as simple as that. The old law, the law of the land, have to come back, because that was the only law. It kept the land going. So. But that's just my take, and an explanation. Don't trust nothing, modern science will tell you, because it took me a long time to figure old science. Old science, that's just the one who still turn the switch and have a light bulb going. It's old science. It's not new science, because they can't replicate old science with new science, because new science don't have the power behind, because it's all fake. It's all Hollywood. So, if there's anybody who will come up with something newer and better and stuff like this, at least, that means someone was working with it. I did my best to break down the effect of Tesla, and hopefully this coming test here will be able to verify everything I said and make a video and let her out there. Let the world know, that's how he did it, and that's how you can do it. You don't have to build a power dam. You can have small power plant in your house. Everybody in the middle of nowhere, you can have the luxury of heating themselves up with no pollution whatsoever. You can drive around with no pollution whatsoever. You shouldn't have. You can make an electric car literally with a drum motor so efficient it will recharge his battery as it drives. And still move the car extremely fast, way faster than any gas or diesel power. So what's wrong with that? Why every time we have to move today, it costs you money? Because it's designed that way, so that way they can make as much money as you can out of you. If you have your own power and everything up, you can do a whole bunch of stuff. It wouldn't cost you a dime a day. So if you make $2 that day and it didn't cost you a dime, you made, a shitload of money. So I mean, like, that's why everything up has became so expensive, because, like, the greed of people is just like, 100% profit is good, but 500 is much better, and the sucker will pay for it, right? Well, how the hell you go to sleep at night? Because you're going to have to buy stuff you don't have, and you know how they operate. So you're getting ripped off before you walk into the door of the door of the store. We have to stop being the most stupid creature on this planet, because I tell you, we are the stupidest creature on this planet. There's no two way about it. But anyway, hopefully, that can explain some of the stuff. People might be able to understand and also duplicate and whatever, make this thing up. But yeah, it's all there, my friend. It's pretty damn straightforward. So hopefully my miniature power plant will have enough power to move everything around and light up and self-sufficient. So, well, I'm going to cut you that, and maybe we'll talk later. Catch you later again. Bye.